Episode 46. Hello, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Dogman Encounters Radio. I'm Vic Cundiff, and I'll be your host as we listen to eyewitness encounters involving one of the most terrifying cryptids, Dogmen. Our guest tonight is Joedy Cook. Joedy, welcome to Dogman Encounters Radio. Thanks so much for coming.
Oh, thank you. Love to be here.
Please give us a brief bio on yourself.
I've been in the cryptid field doing Bigfoot stuff for about 25 years. Prior to that, I was a UFO investigator with a local group here in Cincinnati. And how I kind of got into the cryptid and Bigfoot stuff is that we were getting a lot of reports on Bigfoot, like Mothman type sightings and Dogman type sightings and things. So they asked, does anyone be interested in taking, a look into this stuff? And myself and another, guy on the team by the name of George Clapperson, he co-authored the first two books with me and Chris Murphy, decided to go ahead and do it and kind of fell more into the Bigfoot and the cryptid side, kind of get away from the UFO side because I found this to be a lot more interesting. And like I said, I've been doing that for about 25 years, give or take. And I've done a couple shows, television shows, talking about Bigfoot and other cryptids, and authored a few books and did a magazine project and so forth. So that's kind of how I kind of fell into it, and that's kind of, I'm retired military, so I have a lot of time so I can actually get out into the field and do a lot of work and things. So
I'm sure that does help a lot, having that
time
to be able to go out there and do that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does.
Joedy, you've been doing this for a long time, like you mentioned. What do most people have wrong about what it's like doing what you do?
Well, the thing of it is, I think all researchers do it. And one thing you have to understand, there's no experts in this field, and Bigfoot, or any type of cryptids and stuff. There are absolutely no experts, The problem is that, when people get into it, everything they see is Bigfoot related. If they see an indention in the ground or a broken tree branch or something like that, it's Bigfoot, or, it's the Dogman or something like that. They always think that's what it is because they hear so much about it. And, you have to be at least 80 to 90% objective and skeptic every time you go out to the field, and that's the biggest problem, I think, with a lot of researchers, is that they're not doing that. You have to look at every single possibility that it could be something other than what it is. And if you can't come up with the answer, then probably it is Bigfoot related or Dogman related or something like that. But you have to be completely skeptic. The way I look at it is, if I find evidence of something, and if I had to take it to a cryptid court, say, could I persuade them with the evidence that I've got? If I don't think I can, then, I don't release the evidence until I, do further research on it. And that's what researchers really need to do. They can't just constantly jump in, to thinking, well, just because, I find a den, in the ground and it's big enough to have, for a Dogman, that's probably a Dogman. And a lot of people are getting survival shelters confused with Dogman shelters or Bigfoot shelters and things. And that's the biggest problem. You have to be skeptic about stuff, even though you're not a skeptic. But when you do your research, you have to be. You just can't go in guns blazing. Everything you see is going to be Bigfoot, or Dogman, because that's how it's going to be every time you go out.
You mentioned mistakes that you see researchers making out in the field, but what kind of mistakes do you see researchers making when they're interviewing eyewitnesses?
Oh, they lead. They give them the answers, and you don't ever, lead, on giving an investigation. And that's one thing I talk about in the Beginner's Guide to Bigfoot Research. When you do an investigation, you let them tell you. You don't lead them. Say, if they sit there and, say, there were broken branches and stuff, you don't sit there and ask them, well, how many broken branches? How high were they? How were they low? Because, Bigfoot's 8 foot tall, and, were the branches at least 10 feet? You don't want to do that. You want them to sit there and give you all the answers. There's ways that you can sit there and smoothly, get them to give you the answer that you want without giving them the answer. And that's what you have to basically work on. Never lead on anything. Always let them tell you, what they saw, what they described. Even though if they're describing it, you don't put in, if they've seen a Dogman, you don't say, well, did he have high ears? Was his legs more like a human? Were they more like a dog? Just let them do it and have them draw a picture, as they're, giving the description. And then I don't see a lot of that, with a lot of veteran researchers. I see a lot of it with a lot of the new people coming in to the field, but they're honest mistakes, and that's how you learn.
It goes without saying that what you do isn't safe. Have you ever second-guessed the whole risk-reward factor of what you do and started to wonder if what you're doing is really worth it?
I sit there and I tell everybody, if you're going to go out to the field, never go by yourself. That's a risk factor there, because stuff happens. I always tell people, take at least, 3 days worth of, food and water with you, even if you're going out for an hour. You got to be prepared. You got to keep, safe. Safety comes before research. And, a lot of people don't understand that. It has to be. Safety has to come first. Always tell somebody where you're going to be, what location you're going to be at. Always tell somebody what expected time you're going to be back. Also, when you're in the field, you got to understand, if you're Pacific Northwest or, out east or something like that, you got to find out what type of predators are out there that you're going to be dealing with. That's a safety issue there, too. I don't believe in taking a gun to the field, because your first reaction is you're going to shoot to kill anyhow because you're scared, but if you're going to take a weapon, take a sidearm or something like that. But that's the biggest thing is that people put research ahead of safety, and you can't do that. We got an area up here at Salt Fork State Park called Hozak Cave, and it's one of the most dangerous areas, but there've been a lot of sightings around there, and people have died because they're putting their research ahead of safety. If you go into an area and it looks dangerous, don't bother. I mean, your safety's worth more than trying to get a picture that you're not going to get $1 million for. And that's part of the thing too. People sit there and think that they're going to get millions of dollars and notoriety and stuff because they've got a picture or something. And the fact is, when you get a picture of something, you post it on Facebook, you're going to get more scrutiny from it than you are going to get praise. So it's really not worth it. Safety has to come before research.
It is kind of funny how there's so many people out there that think that if they get a mediocre picture even of a Dogman or a Bigfoot and throw it out there on Facebook that they're going to get some kind of praise and acknowledgement, when we both know, having been in this for a long time, that's just not the case.
It's not, because I don't post my research on Facebook. For the simple fact is you're always going to have somebody that is a grammar police or, somebody that, is going to, dispute the picture, and, or even a track or something like that. You're always going to have someone. So it's not worth it. And it's more discouraging, if you're, to post it on your website. That's the whole purpose of your website. Post it there. Never post stuff on Facebook. I knew of one researcher that has a convention, and he picks people who put stuff on Facebook because he thinks that shows you're a legitimate researcher. And it's just like, no, it doesn't work that way. You don't want to be posting your stuff because you're always asking for trouble every time you post something.
It is funny how everyone on Facebook is an instant expert.
It is, and the thing of it is that I hate to be coined expert when I do an interview, and I tell you, you're not an expert. To me, an expert in the field is somebody that was able to get close to them, someone that was able to be accepted by them, who was accepted to be part of their group. You lived among them, you ate among them, you gave the little ones cute little names, and you have a journal and you drew pictures of them, and you wrote down their habitat and everything like that, and you got proof of that. Now that's an expert. There are just too many people claiming to be experts, and in reality, if you want to be really critical about it, there is no physical evidence that any of these cryptids exist. It's all circumstantial evidence, and you can't be an expert on something that has never been proven. And the thing of it is, it's never going to be proven until science says it's going to be proven. And science is so two-faced and so one way also. I know that's, kind of saying it both the wrong way there, but, science will never admit to be wrong. Okay? They don't want to admit that they were wrong about something. And so if one of these creatures are discovered, they're going to classify it as something other than what it is. So they're not proven to be wrong. And science is supposed to be open. It's supposed to be objective. It's supposed to be accepting. That's the whole point of science. But they won't look at, the fact that, there's a large primate or a large canine, or a humanoid flying around. They don't want to accept that, because that's all what's in the movies and stuff, But if you want to really, really look at the evidence, of Dogman and Bigfoot, and ghosts, and things like that, UFOs, they're more circumstantial evidence proving that they exist than they are people who are sitting in jail right now who were put in jail because of circumstantial evidence, or even sitting on death row because of circumstantial evidence. You can ask any police officer, you can ask any judge, and they will tell you more people are in jail because of circumstantial evidence than physical evidence. Because circumstantial evidence is what puts you in jail. It's harder to prove through physical evidence. That's why you have circumstantial evidence. And if you want to look at the proof, it's true. It's right there in front of you. There's more circumstantial evidence proving that these things exist than people who are in jail for the crimes that, they allegedly committed or they did. Human testimony doesn't mean squat in this field. Okay? It doesn't mean squat in ufology or the paranormal. It means something if you're going to put someone in jail or put someone to death. Then human testimony is worthy. I'm good enough to put you to death, but my word's not good enough to say I saw Bigfoot or I saw a large canine. It's really ridiculous. But that's society. That's how society is.
That's true. It's a hard one to figure out. My next question for you, Joedy, is one that I know you've put a lot of thought into. It seems like a simple question at face value, but actually it's kind of complicated. If someone, for whatever reason, comes into possession of a Dogman corpse, what advice would you have for them?
Well, here's the thing. I'm working on a book. I've been working on this thing for like 3 years, off and on. And it's basically about if you find a body, what do you do? Okay? And I did a lot of research through state law, federal law, and things like that. Now, what a lot of people don't understand, in a state, the land is either owned by the state, it's owned by the federal government, or it's owned by the county. Okay? So, if you find a body, like, I'm going to use Bigfoot as an example in this case. People would sit there and say, well, I'll just cut its head off and, I got proof. Well, that's fine. Go ahead and mutilate a corpse of an animal and see what happens. They will prosecute you quicker, in a court for mutilating a corpse of an animal. Especially if it's on federal land, if it's on county land, or if it's even on state land. If you remove it, you can go to jail for theft. I mean, you can walk into a state park and pick flowers, and you can be arrested for theft because it belongs to the state. It belongs to the city, or it belongs to the county. People don't realize that. Even though you can have a farm, own a farm, 65 acres. Well, let me tell you something. You may think you own that dirt, but you don't. You just own the building that sits on that dirt. That's why they have eminent domain laws. And that is why you pay property taxes. You really don't own that property. That's why it could be taken from you at any time. People don't understand that. So what I tell people is, if you find something, don't mutilate it, don't move it, because, if they really want to be hard about it, they can take actions against you because of that. What you do, you photograph it completely photograph it. You take hair samples. Like I tell people, always have a bio kit where you can draw blood if the blood's not been congealed yet. Take skin samples. If you're going to remove anything, remove a tooth. Don't remove the hand or the head or anything like that. Remove a tooth, because a tooth has got mostly, DNA can last for years in a tooth. And then what I also tell people is, don't call local authorities, because local authorities aren't going to know what to do. You need to call the ODNR, of the state, and have them come out. And this is what you do. This is the critical part. You have a few of your friends hidden in the area with cameras, videotaping you, bringing them in to the location where the body is. So that way you got video proof that that you brought the DNR in for the body. So where the DNR can never come back and say, hey, there was no body there. There was never no call. We never went out there. Well, we got video of you doing it. And that's why I tell people, don't try to take the body, and put it on display. I don't think that's a good idea. If you do, I would turn it over to someone who's a veterinarian, someone who's got credentials. Turn it over to them. Then that's a little bit of a safety net for yourself, because it's in possession of someone who's got credentials and things. But there again, like I said, if the state really wanted to get hard with you, or the federal government, because it was on their land, they can. And a lot of people need to understand that. And especially if you decide you're going to mutilate the body, just have a piece of it to sit there and prove, then, if they want to be difficult about that too, they can charge you for that. And the thing of it is, once all that stuff happens, it will never hit the news. No one will ever know, that you're sitting in jail for mutilating an animal corpse. Because it's going to get covered up so quick. And that's why I tell people, you got to sit there and videotape, you bringing the ODNR or the U.S. Forestry Service or whoever is the, authority in that area, other than, local law enforcement. Because local law enforcement is not going to know what to do. All they're going to do is call the DNR out anyhow.
It's funny how many people in this field think that once you come into possession of a body like that, your problems are over, when in fact, they've just begun.
They've just begun, because the thing of it is, if they want it quiet, this whole thing with Rick Dyer with his body, there's a lot of stuff behind that a lot of people didn't know. There was, at one point, the Chinese government offered him a large sum of money for the body. And I don't know what the exact details of that is, but I know at the night when the body got turned over, when they proved it was a hoax, because it was in a secure location, they thought there was going to be operatives out there trying to take possession of it, and they had it in a secure location with armed individuals because of that. I don't know if the government got involved. I heard rumors that the government got involved trying to look into it, but I don't have any factual proof of that. I'm just going by what other researchers who have talked to him, who knows him, and this is what he, told them. So, but like I said, if the government doesn't, if they think it's a legitimate thing, they're going to look into it and they're going to take possession of it because they're going to have the right to do it. That's why I said you need to, photograph it completely. Take all the samples that you can, hair samples from different parts of the body, swab the mouth, draw blood, take a fingernail, graft some skin off. I mean, just do everything you possibly can to have proof of the existence of it. You don't necessarily have to have the body anymore. As long as you got photographs of it, you got the blood sample, skin sample, hair samples and stuff, that's all you need. And believe me, a lot more people are going to sit there and believe that, when you say, look, the government came and took it, more people are going to believe that story than anything else because they know how the government works on that.
Yeah, that does make good sense. Do you remember the first Dogman case you ever investigated?
Oh, yeah. It was back in 1992. I was actually looking into the Defiance, Ohio case that happened in 72. And I've got a report right outside of Norton, Ohio. And I was actually heading up to Akron for a Bigfoot report. And so we stopped over on Norton, Ohio, and there's a park called Silver Creek, I think, was the name of it. I think it's still the name of it. Sightings in that park, in which they've, had quite a few, sightings, in that particular, park still today. And the sighting was, there was, a group of individuals that were going down one of the trails, and just ahead they saw what they thought was a large dog. And it was, digging off to the side. And, so they kind of sat there and watched and kind of moved slow, because if it was a dog, they were afraid, well, maybe it's a wild dog and they didn't want to, scare it and have it come attack. So they were kind of like watching it, waiting for it to see what it was doing. And then I guess it got wind of them because it lifted its head up and looked back over its shoulders, off to the left. And then kind of turned its head, looked back over off his shoulder off to the right, where he was able to see them. And he stood up, but he never turned his body completely around to face them. Only they were able to see a, side profile of the head, and just the back. But they did, it was described as a large dog. It had a tail, dark in color, long arms. It did have a snout. It did have the high ears, and so forth. The feet were in the legs. There again was, another case that where it was more human than it was more canine. And that seems to be up in that particular area, that northern part of Ohio, is where it seems to, a lot of these sightings are what you would call your type 3s, which is more type, of a human foot, more of a human leg than the canine. That's being, cited, let's say, like in Michigan or Wisconsin or something, in that area. But like you said, it never turned its body to look at them, and it just walked off, and then ended up going down on all fours, But that was the first one, and I was sitting there thinking, well, maybe, it was a Bigfoot. Maybe it was a different type of Bigfoot that had more of a snout to it, protruded snout, like an ape. But they were very determined, and what they saw, that it was definitely a dog head on this thing. I mean, it was a long snout, so But that was the very first one, and I thought it was very interesting. And like I said, throughout the years, I would get a lot of sightings of people seeing these dogmen, and Some were very, very interesting cases, and some I thought were most likely misidentification cases of a Bigfoot. But now as time has gone on, there's just so many more sightings coming out, and I'm looking back at all these old sightings that they were probably definitely Dogman. Because if you sit there and think about it, and in your research, years ago, sightings were very far and in between. And as time is gone, they're just getting abundant. I mean, even now, today, there's sightings all the time of these things. They're like Bigfoot sightings now. I mean, there's just a lot of them happening. 20 years ago, you were lucky if you got one or two, maybe even three of the sightings. So, yeah, that was the first one. That was one that really got me really heavy into it. Because like I said, I kept getting more and more reports, up there at, Silver Creek, Park, with the sightings and stuff that was going on up there.
When you led into talking about that Silver Creek encounter, you mentioned the whole Defiance, Ohio thing.
Mm-hmm.
Please tell us about that whole situation that went down in 72.
Well, there's when you read the newspaper articles, about it, the police kind of shoved it off at first as a bear. This thing was attacking cattle. It was attacking livestock. It even attacked two railroad workers. And, they described it as a werewolf. There is one particular sighting where it was actually wearing clothes. But I think that was just, someone that was out playing werewolf that night, on that particular one, because that particular sighting, the features were a lot different than what the actual features that were being seen, because it was, like I said, it was more like a dog, and that when people were seeing it, they were confusing it with a bear. And in 1972, there were no bears in Ohio. There were no bears in Ohio until 1982 is when they were starting to populate, and that was just mostly right there along the Pennsylvania border, and that was the farthest that they would come in. So at that time, saying it was a bear probably was very inaccurate because there were just no bears in Ohio. Now, I talked with the wife of the chief of police in that area, and the chief is passed away right now. But I spoke with her, and she was telling me that the police was taking it very serious, because they knew that there was definitely something that was going on there, and it happened for about a week. A lot of people don't realize that it happened for a pretty long time, and there was a lot of state law enforcement that was involved in that particular case, and things. Some people say it happened the whole month of August. Some people say it just happened, just a week or two. But the wife was saying that there was, her husband was pretty concerned about what they seen, evidence-wise, especially the mutilation of the one cow, and the attack on the two railroad workers and things. So they were taking it serious, but they were playing it. They were downplaying it with the media because they didn't want people in that area to get really concerned and really afraid. But it made, international news. The story did. And from what I found out also, talking with the wife, is that this isn't the first time that this has happened in Defiance. It happened earlier, to 1972. Where people were seeing this thing in there, but it wasn't as active as it was in, August of 1972. So that was kind of interesting, but it was, it's a very, very interesting case. It's probably one of the best known werewolf cases, in the world. I have to say it like that because, a lot of people know a lot about the Michigan Dogman and the Beast of Bray Road, and the Defiance, Ohio werewolf is up there with those. A lot of people around the world know about that case and things. So, yeah, it's very interesting because, there's, unless you talk to actual people that were involved, witnesses and stuff. I mean, I've been up there and I talked to a couple people that were actually there at the time, and their stories are basically the same. And like I said, the newspaper articles, that I've got and things were just, downplaying this thing, really downplaying it. But people were really terrified, this whole incident at that time. Yeah, very interesting case.
Well, with as many cases like this as the news centers get where people are hoaxing things like this, I can't be all that surprised that they downplayed it and didn't take it seriously, but it's unfortunate when you have a real situation like that going on and the people around you aren't taking it seriously. A lot of people make the mistake in thinking that these things don't come into developed areas. They think dogmen just stay way out in the woods where no one goes and that's it. But to illustrate my point that they do come into developed areas from time to time, there was a family in London, Ohio whose home was attacked every night. Tell us about that.
That's kind of interesting, Kate. So, see, a lot of people really get this confused with the Wolfpack case in Maine because of how the location of the story is. There was a gentleman by the name of Keith, and his wife was named Diane. Williams was her last name, and they moved to London, Ohio, to a kind of a remote area. They had a 4-year-old daughter, and things were going pretty good while they were living there. And one particular night, the wife was in the kitchen, and she happened to look out the kitchen window, and that's when she saw it. That was the first encounter where she saw it looking into the window, and they had what she thought was glowing eyes, which was basically, I don't think these things have glowing eyes. I think it's just the light reflecting off the eyes, and things. And she described it, at first when she first saw it, she thought it was a stray dog. But when she noticed the size of it and things, she knew it wasn't a dog. And it kind of made aggression towards the window. At times, it would try to get into the door. Now, the husband, he worked. He went to night school and stuff, so, he wasn't there the first night that it happened. But as time was going on, this thing was always trying to get into the house. And it would happen, at night. It wouldn't happen like at a particular time, or anything like that. And it got to the point where they were so in fear for their 4-year-old little girl that they got up and basically left. Keith would kind of like downplay, with his wife. I'll go out and look around. And, I didn't find any evidence, but he did. He saw tracks, scratch marks, things like that. But he didn't want to tell his family, to get them more scared and things. But they felt they needed to get up and go, for the safety of their child and things. So, yeah, it's one of the very, first, really interesting Dogman cases, because it happened right between like 1981, 1982. Because I remember this. I was in, high school. I was a senior in high school at the time this case happened. And I actually remember, reading about this in the newspaper. Because I was always interested in the stuff, even when I was in high school and things. This is one case that kind of sticks out because I really remember this when I was a senior in high school and things. But yeah, they're pretty spooked. The family was, and pretty scared. It was definitely, they described it all the way down to the T, as a werewolf, But, yeah, I think if it wanted to get in, it did. I think it was more there harassing the family, because that's what Keith, always thought, that it was more trying to get them to get out of the area than, actually, getting, trying to hurt the family, I think, because like he said, if it wanted to get in, it could have got in. It definitely could have got in.
I'll tell you this, when you've got something outside that looks like a werewolf trying to get in the house on a regular basis, if that's not a Century 21 moment, I don't know what is.
Oh, you think about it, and because, the location where this, cabin and, house was, I mean, it's in a remote area. I mean, at the time, it was in a remote area. Now it's not, but, it's scary. I mean, to sit there and think that, if they want to hurt you, they'll hurt you. If they want to scare you, they'll scare you. And I think in this particular case, that if this thing wanted to actually hurt somebody, it could have. But I don't think it wanted to hurt anybody. I think it just wanted them out of the area. I think it had enough intelligence to know that. So, and that, like you said, that's my opinion. This is one of the actually first cases when I got into, ufology, doing it full time. This is one of the first cases I actually, looked into, to learn more and more about and things. Actually been up to the area, where this took place, and, yeah, there definitely something could be up there.
Yeah, what a nightmare that would be.
Yeah, well, the family thought it was. I mean, especially like, in 1981, 1982, when you describe a creature that you see as a werewolf, and you gotta understand something. A lot of, 80s, 70s, and 60s, your typical werewolf was your Lon Chaney style werewolf. A lot of werewolves back then, even in movies, except for Night Shadows, I think was the name of the show. That particular show had a werewolf in there that was more like your Dogman, today's sighting. But most of these werewolf shows back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s were much more like your Lon Chaney style werewolf, where it was more like a man looking than it was more like a dog. And for someone to sit there and describe it as a werewolf dog, that gives credibility, especially at that time, the sighting. So I find that interesting.
You mentioned that whole Wolfpack case from Maine with Shelley Rockwell Martin. Did you ever interview her about that encounter that she had?
No, I did not. Actually, I tried my best to get in contact with them. The story is nothing like the show because, the Sci-Fi Channel, exaggerated a lot, embellished, is probably the best word, a lot about that particular show. And things to make it more of a, the paranormal type thing. But there was a lot of factual that was in that show, what they talked about, these things were definitely, dog shaped. They were definitely huge. They did fear for their life, with these things, and things. I know I talked to an investigator that's been on that ground, where everything took place, and, people in that area will tell you that there is something odd there. There have been sightings there before. Now, they kind of played it up that it was more extraterrestrial involved, I think, because of the lights and stuff. But, in the original story, that it wasn't. The lights and stuff actually weren't like that. It was more like, I think, the moon coming through the fog, and so forth. So I definitely love to talk to her. I love to know a little bit more because, I'm using a story in my book because it's interesting, and at this point I can only go by what the show was, for the story and things, and what, the Sci-Fi Channel, their input on it and things. But I would really love to have her interview, talk to her, or even talk to her husband about it, to kind of find this is the real story that happened. So, yeah, that's one of my goals, man. To definitely talk to them about that, because that is, I think, is probably the most interesting case out there right now. It definitely is, because I've only heard, like I said, of one other case where there was more than one that was involved, and this was a very interesting one. Love to know more about it.
That was a really good show. If any of the listeners out there haven't seen it yet, the show we're talking about is an episode of Paranormal Witness. The actual episode is titled The Wolf Pack. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and check it out. It's really a good show.
From my understanding, when she was being interviewed by the Sci-Fi Channel, when you see them on that show talking, that's them telling the story. Now, when the Sci-Fi Channel was doing a dramatization, that was done basically by their story, and that's when they kind of embellished it. And they really didn't know at the time they're telling their story that this was what was going on with the reenactment. And if I think they knew how the reenactment was going, I don't think they would have done the story, to be honest with you.
It's been said that in one of Akron, Ohio's metro parks, there's something that looks like a werewolf. Tell us about that.
There was a particular metro park. It actually sits. Now there's like 3 of them up in this area. Okay, but it's just one particular park up there that's very close to the residential area that has had what they call werewolf sightings. People would be in there having picnics. They would be in there just riding their bikes or walking, and they would have contact with this thing. They would see it. Now, these are not just nighttime sightings. These are daytime sightings that are taking place also. And, when I went up there, how I kind of got involved in that, there was a ranger that was locking up the area, and he saw a dog sitting off to his left. And he, said, the dog kind of had this odd look on his face, kind of watching him and stuff. He's trying to call him over. He wouldn't come over to him. He had part of a sandwich, or a hamburger and stuff that he was eating. Tried to get the dog to come over with that. Dog wouldn't come over. He threw it over towards the dog, figured that the dog would kind of come out and get it, eat it. Because it was snowing, and he was just wanting to make, that the dog had something to eat. And it wouldn't go near the food. It just kept looking at him. The head was kind of down, the eyes were kind of upwards. And that's how he kind of described it, the odd look. So he got into his vehicle, backed the vehicle up. The vehicle, was facing towards the dog, had his headlights on, because it was just getting at, dusk, dark there. It was after 5:30 in the evening. And, the headlights were hitting it. And he said that's when it stood up. Real slow movement. Standing up. And it turned to its right and kind of at a jog, more or less, ran out of the wood line across the road. And so he told his wife when he got home, he didn't report it, that night to his authorities. He didn't report it until the following morning, but he told his wife that night. So his wife called a friend of mine who was with a paranormal group up there, and she called me because I did a conference for them a few weeks prior, and called me, and I, got out of bed and I drove like 5 hours that night, up to Cleveland, and I met him that that morning, and there was snow on the ground, and, you can see where the tracks were, where we counted 168 tracks coming out of the wood line. And we got really good photographs of the track. They're very human-style foot, claw marks, in the snow, very unique looking. He even said that, the legs were very human. The feet were very human. They weren't like dog, And, I got his eyewitness drawing. He did a drawing of the head, and he did a full drawing of the body. And it had a tail, and everything. And, the way he described it, it was a large, like German Shepherd was the best way he described it. And, so I went to the Metro Park. I stayed up there that weekend, and on Monday morning, went to the Metro Park and talked to them. And they the girl kind of looked at me and kind of sat back in her chair, and she goes, "We're aware of the situation. It's just we don't like to talk about it." And that's what she said. I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You guys know what's going on here, but you don't want to talk about it, And it's a safety issue, to them. And it was just odd that oh yeah, we know what's going on. We know there's something there, And I got in contact with their safety manager. And, we were going to go out there for, 2 nights and stay out there. They were going to close the park off, for us to do an investigation. We were going to have 2 other officers with us, and at the last minute, they canceled out. And now they are completely shutting up about it. Not like nothing ever happened. They don't know what we're talking about. The ranger, that works there, his phone number's disconnected. They said the guy never worked for them. They're really shutting up about this. The guy was in uniform, that Saturday morning that I was up there. And, he showed me his ID proving who he was. He was, very legitimate. But, after things were getting out and they knew it was getting serious, they kind of shut up about it. And I am finding a couple of other witnesses that almost hit it where it would cross the road. Because what it would do is come out of the wood line at night, cross the road, and go up to this large, like, condominium area and go through the trash for food. And, people would almost hit it while this thing would run across the road. And I've got drawings, from people that, said, this is what I saw, and I almost hit. And even on the feet, the feet were very human feet, But, like I said, it was very doggish. It had, the canine snout and everything. So it's a very interesting story. It's, I don't tell the location of the exact park because it's a still ongoing investigation, that I'm doing, and things. I'm still getting stuff coming out of there. And my thing is with the Metro Park, somebody's going to get hurt eventually. And because you need to let someone go in there and see what's going on. It's just a bunch of government, nonsense on covering things up.
I'd say about 4 or 5 months ago, this poor guy contacted me with regards to that situation up there, and he was asking me about what I knew about that werewolf that was supposedly seen up in one of the metro parks around Akron. Mm-hmm. I didn't have all that much info to give him. I just gave him what I knew, but I felt so bad for him because he was worried about his mother. His mother routinely, I think almost every day, goes walking alone through those parks for exercise, and he was worried about her safety. If they know about something like that, yeah, like you said, that's horrible that they would keep that under wraps and not warn people so that they could protect themselves somehow.
Well, what they did basically was beef up security in the area. And that's their way of controlling the situation. They have uniformed and ununiformed people that's going through that park at all times, because of that particular reason. The thing of it is, it's revenue. That's all what it comes down to. A loss of revenue is a loss of jobs, and if it has not hurt anyone yet, just leave it alone. And you have to understand that's government thinking. It's a revenue issue, and things. If it hasn't hurt anybody yet, it's probably not going to, and eventually it will move on. My particular thing, I don't think it's living in that park because there is too much area that this thing can travel from, undetected to get to this particular metro park from a lot of the woods and stuff that's up there and things. I think it's just a stopping ground because there's food there. People do picnic. There's garbage cans there. There's abundance of, small prey in that area. So I don't think it's something that actually lives in that park, to be honest with you. This case is, a couple years old, and as of right now, no one has been hurt, and sightings have gone down. So that kind of tells me that, it's probably not happening as much there anymore, or it's being detained, the sightings outside of Akron and stuff, especially like in the Norton area where, Silver Creek is, on the, eastern side of Akron, where a lot of the woods and stuff are out there. There's a lot more activity going on there. So, I think this thing has kind of maybe moved on, and things. So, because like I said, the sightings are kind of going down there. It's either, like I said, that or, they got a pretty good cap on it.
Well, I hope it has moved on. What can you tell us about the whole Germantown, Ohio situation?
Germantown. They've been a lot of stuff going on there in Germantown throughout the years. It's called the Germantown Werewolf. A lot of the people that live up there know about it. They know that there's something there. There's a local researcher by the name of Adam Davies, who's been doing a lot of research up there. He's actually seen it, so he knows that there's definitely something there. He knows that the local law enforcement is covering things up there. I know the local law enforcement's covering things up there. The people that live up there know that there's something there. They know there's something there that's real, and their livestock is, being killed. Cattle are being taken from one location and mutilated in another location. There were some cases where, it has happened on farms. I don't think it's actually taking cows out of the area and moving them to another location. I think cows, they get out and they roam, and they just happen to go into an area and it got killed. I found remains of cattle. Adam has found remains of cattle. I was up there last year. I'd seen a group of guys, patrolling a pasture, and with flashlights and stuff. I was along the road line, up against the fence. They seen me and the guy that I was with, and they burrowed over to where we were, flashing lights. And I just remember one guy going, it's just some dude, and stuff. And, they got to ask, what are you doing? And I told him, I said, well, I'm, out here doing an investigation on the Germantown Werewolf. And, so are we, and they said what they do, these guys get together and they patrol each other's property, the cattle and stuff, and, horses and things like that, kind of do a count of, what's there, because, they know there's something there. These people they take it serious up there. They told us of one, remains, and that's, the one we found the following morning and things. But, they know it's not a bear. They know it's not a cougar. They know that it's something, because they have found clothing up there with blood on them. And people have told the police, and the police is shoving it off. But the clothes is gone after they notify the police. They'll say, oh, it's probably just, somebody had, clothes in the garbage bag. They got knocked off and, landed on roadkill or some stuff like that. And that's what they're telling them. But the clothes are being shredded. Like, there's one particular case where Adam Davies found clothing, a sweater, a t-shirt, and a pair of pants. And, the sweater, the rip marks in the sweater coincide with the rip marks in the t-shirt. The one pants leg was completely shredded below the knee, and they were covered with blood, off the side of the road. And, he told the police, and the police kind of got stupid with him about it, and, and when he went back, to go get it, it was gone. So, like I said, the local law enforcement in the area know that there's something there. And even, as of today, there's still stuff happening. There's a particular area up there where all this stuff is taking place, where the carcasses are being found, and the DNR has signs posted, warning, controlled area. Which is kind of unusual. I've never really seen a sign that said controlled area, from the DNR. I've seen other signs posted by the DNR, saying private property or government property or things like that, but never controlled area. So why is it a controlled area? Meaning that it's being monitored. So, they don't want people in there. So it's like I said, there's a lot of stuff still going on there. It's a very interesting case. And like I said, it's one of these things that it's a localized, area that everybody in that town knows what's going on. It's one of those things.
Now that we're talking about livestock being attacked, tell us about the farmer who had 2 ponies attacked.
Yeah, it was Butler County, Riley Township, I'm sorry. There was a farmer out there that had 2 ponies attacked, and this thing was able to get into the corral. It took the ponies out, decapitated one of them, but took them both down to the same area out to this pasture and killed them. Tried to get the larger horse, did some damage to the larger horse, but did not kill the larger horse. It attacked some of the sheep that were in the area, and the farmer ended up calling the sheriff's department because they were the local law enforcement there. And the sheriff's department came out, looked at the area, looked at the kills and stuff. The veterinarian was called out. The veterinarian, he wasn't sure of what it is. Basically, the police, kept saying, "Oh, it's a knife. Those are knife marks. Those are knife marks," and stuff, or an axe, is what did it, and stuff. And everybody knows that, you're not going to get close to a large horse and trying to hurt them without getting yourself hurt, So, the farmer, the individual said there was tracks in the corral. You can see them, very large canine tracks. And the sheriff's department basically raked them over, covering up the tracks, and said that, this is something that was done by an occult, devil worshippers. But there was no signs of anything of devil worshiping or sadism or anything like that taking place. And anybody that's been in the paranormal knows that, there are going to be signs, of pentagrams, candles, sacrifice, a sacrificial area, None of that was found. Now, the police said that they found it, in an abandoned house, a little ways up, but everybody in the area said, well, heck, that's been there. That's been there for years. Everybody knows that. He heard the night before, he heard howling, that's what he thought it was, like a wolf's howl, a dog's howl. And a couple other, neighbors have had smaller, animals missing, but this is the largest that's ever been attacked. But the official word by the sheriff's department on this is, devil worshiping, and the cult is, did this. And, actually kind of interesting, I found out last night, talking with another researcher, that also investigated this, is they said they have somebody in custody, who is a devil worshiper, that did this. And the odd thing about this is this guy is from Africa, and he really doesn't speak English that well, but he's being accused of it. And everybody knows this guy in the area, and everybody, he works for a lot of the different farmers. And he's known to be the nicest guy, loving animals and things like that. But the fact that, now they're kind of pinning it on this guy, I think is bull, because, the owner, he says he still sees people from the DNR up on his property with weapons, wearing camouflage and stuff, patrolling his area. And when they see him, they take off. So they're up there looking for something. They're not there looking for, somebody who's in the voodoo and stuff, because none of this adds up to what happened, and things. No one was able, because the corral where it was broken into was one of those metal doors, and it was completely bent down. A human could not have done that. And the fact, like I said, the farmers saw large canine tracks that were in the corral. And why would they, sit there and get rid of the tracks and try to make the veterinarian, say something about the wounds that's not? Because they kept saying, oh, no, these are knives. This is an axe. We know what we're talking about. This is what it is. So they know that there's something there. And this was basically a big cover-up, to this.
Didn't you tell me that the ponies were taken over the top rail somehow?
They were taken over. The corral was never busted into where the door was still secured. It was just the metal part was bent down and broken down where it had to go in, and it actually, they believe, killed the ponies inside the corral and took them out of the corral. And I think what was happening was it was taking the ponies out and putting them into a certain location to come back for the feed on. But the thing of it is, the door was still secured. So he had to lift them to get them out. And that was part of the things that, what's so odd, about this is just, the police has one way. I mean, the police won't even talk about it. And the neatest thing about this, it was on local news and on the websites of the local news for 4 hours, and it was removed. You cannot find anything about it. It is completely removed. Yeah, the media no longer has, you can't find it anymore on local media, on their websites and things. Like I said, it was removed within 4 hours. So that's what I'm saying. It's a big cover-up. It's definitely a big cover-up. One of the sheep, you can see that I got a picture of where he had a bite mark taken out of the side. And, the police was saying, well, no, that's a knife mark. Well, if it was a knife mark, it would have killed the sheep. Yeah, I mean, it would have went all the way into the sheep and killed the sheep. He wouldn't have been up still walking around, and stuff. So, I mean, it's definitely, it's a bite mark, so, and like I said, there's a lot of things that just isn't making any sense, with this story, when it comes to, law enforcement.
Well, in these cases, very rarely does it all come together and make sense. It's just always such a mess. Tell us about that Point Pleasant investigation you did.
Oh, yeah, that was kind of interesting. There was a sighting at Point Pleasant, West Virginia, earlier in the year, right before the Mothman Festival, and I went down. I spoke at the Mothman Festival, and went down and checked out the location and the sighting of where this took place, and it's a residential area. It's pretty neat. This thing came out of the woods, walking straight down the street. If you're looking at a map, of the area, it would have been coming from left to right. Basically more or less going into the town, I guess, is the best way to describe it. The woman was sitting on her porch smoking a cigarette. She's seen this large canine walking down the road. She describes it as a German Shepherd walking like a person. That's exactly her description of it, coming down the road. What happened was, at the same time that, it was coming down the road, there was another neighbor out there that saw it too, but was pulling into the driveway and actually seen it. And the odd thing about this case, now she describes this thing being about 6 foot, looking like a German Shepherd, like I said, is that there is a government facility that sits right there on the street directly across from her house. And this thing came all the way up past her home. Okay? So this government facility has cameras all over the place. I mean, all over the place. And there's no way that they could not have gotten a photograph of this thing or on video. But, the government facility says that there is absolutely no video of this thing. They didn't catch it. They don't know what people are talking about. So that's the neat thing about this case. There are a lot of eyewitnesses that actually seen this thing, and this thing was brave enough to walk down the road, walk down the middle of a street.
Yeah, it might seem really strange to think for a second that Dogman might do that, but that's not the first time by a long shot that I've heard about a Dogman being seen walking down the street. In fact, I've heard of cases where they've been seen walking down the street during the day.
Yeah, I've seen reports and stuff like that too, where, these things have, daytime sightings and things, and that is not unusual. This is, one thing I know through doing Bigfoot investigations and things like that, you're dealing, and this goes with Bigfoot also, you're dealing with a predator that probably has a very large calorie intake to sustain itself. Okay? Most normal men, eat between 1,500 and 2,000 calories a day. And that's kind of extending over your calorie, intake. And we have a full refrigerator, full pantry. We got McDonald's and all that stuff down the street. So food is available to us. Something like a Dogman or even a Bigfoot, because of its size and intake, and the protein intake that it needs, probably has a larger calorie intake. Maybe 5,000 calories or something like that because of the size. So it's not going to sleep 8 hours during the day and go hunting at night. Okay? It's just not going to. This thing's going to spend every waking moment looking for food. It's going to eat, it's going to sleep, get back up again, eat and sleep, eat and sleep. So that's why you have just as many daytime sightings as you do nighttime sightings. And it's the same thing with Bigfoot. These animals don't have the luxury of getting 8 hours of sleep, and then go trying to hunt at night, because it's just, they're going to spend every waking moment looking for food. They have to sustain their calorie in order to survive. You know, so, and researchers don't understand that. I mean, you know, finding Bigfoot, you know, they're firm believers that these things sleep 8 hours during the day and only go hunting at night. It can't sustain its calorie intake doing that. You know, look at us when we're hungry. You know, we'll go from the refrigerator to the pantry, and we got all this food in, we can't decide what we want. You know, and we're hungry. These things don't have that luxury. You know, so they're going to sit there and you know, eat mostly plant life or small rodents or fish or whatever it can get its hand on. You know, and once it gets its fill, it's going to sleep, and it's going to get back up and do it all over again.
The hair just stands up on the back of my neck every time I hear someone who's got one of these things in their area tell me about how they're going to head out in the daytime and snoop around, see what they can dig up, but make sure that they're back in the house before dark, as if that's some kind of form of safety. I can't tell you how many times I've had to inform people like that these things do get up and are out and about during the daytime. That's no measure of safety in the least.
No, there's no measure of safety anyhow. I mean, you know, the thing of it is, it's an animal, okay? Animals normally do not kill if they're not hungry. You know, they're not going to attack if they're not hungry, okay? Lions, bears, things like that. They normally don't attack and kill unless they're hungry, you know, or, you know, you got into their personal space, you know, or something like that. And, you know, so that's the kind of stuff you have to worry about. You know, when you go out, even though you're going out during the day, you know, you're going to stumble, you know, on personal space, and that's just putting yourself in, you know, in jeopardy. You know, nighttime, you're probably a little bit more safer, you know, because it's easier for it to hide from you and make itself not noticed to you, you know, because it's night. You know, during the day, it doesn't have that option. It's going to have to do what it needs to do. You know, so yeah, I know what you're talking about. Believe me.
It is pretty frustrating. Some of the ideas that people have about these things are so far off base. But tell us about that turkey hunter in Ohio who got that very nasty surprise that one day.
Yeah, this is actually east of Akron, Ohio. This guy, 68-year-old hunter, turkey hunter, was out, and he heard turkeys. He was in a wooded area, heard the turkeys, all of a sudden the turkeys stopped. You know, he wasn't sure if, you know, there was another predator around, or if it was him. And so he started going out of the wood line into this open area. It wasn't very big, open area. But he said as soon as he got, you know, like right in the middle, he said 5 of these dogs came out at him that were walking on their hind legs. Described them as, you know, darkish, you know, brown hair, black, looking very much like a wolf, German Shepherd, you know, husky style looking dog. He said there was a smaller one that showed aggression, you know, snarling, growling. The other ones kind of were making a circle around him, but they weren't making sounds or anything. He did have a gun. He did face the gun at the one that was making aggression, and it kind of backed off and stopped making aggression. And then it would come forward a little bit again. He would raise his weapon down. Now, he never once said that these were werewolves or dogmen. He always described them as dogs that were walking on their hind legs. He just couldn't comprehend, why these dogs were able to walk on their hind legs. He said they were big. He said they were about 6-7 feet. They were large. They were bigger than he was, except for the smaller one. Was about his size, and which he thought was probably the alpha of the pack. And he said it kind of, without him really knowing, they moved him back into the wood line. And once he got into the wood line, they didn't follow him in. They just stood there in the open area, and he, ran, basically, and then he kind of stopped because he felt, well, if I run, I'm a prey, so he kind of like walked very fast out of there. But he said they never followed him. They would not let him go any further, and it was probably one of these things. This was their feeding ground, and they weren't going to let him in there, But like I said, he described them all the way down to a T. Even the paws. He said the front paws were, like he said, like how you get a dog to beg, and the dog, get up on it, sit up, and his arms will kind of be like limp there, limp wrist type. And I said, yeah. He said that's kind of how they were. But he said that the paws were kind of more like hands because the fingers were much longer, but they had claws on them, but they were much longer, and things. And he thought that was kind of odd about them, other than they were able to walk on both legs. He just didn't understand. He didn't even once think they were werewolves or anything like that. But he was afraid, but he wasn't terrified, because to him they were dogs. That were able to walk. And like you said, because after he told me the whole story, and I talked to him a little bit. I let him tell me everything, and that's when I mentioned to him, have you heard anything about Dogman or Werewolf? He didn't know what I was talking about when I said Dogman, and I kind of had to explain to him what the Dogmen were and stuff, and he still didn't think they were werewolves. He just didn't understand how these dogs were able to, he thought they're, just odd animals, because they were able to, walk on their hind legs, but he said the characteristics were a little, were somewhat different of a dog because of the way they were standing, they were still like human legs, because afterwards after I let him give me full detail, he couldn't really notice if the legs were canine or if they were human. He thought from like the waist area, it was more human looking. But he never saw the bottom of the feet to determine what they were. He said, but they were just, the chest was broader, it wasn't narrow like a dog and things. But he said, they're very canine, dogs to him.
If he would have heard of the topic of dogmen and then seen that, I'm sure he would have really been over the top. In Lima, there was a sighting someone had while they were driving down the road. Tell us about that.
The Lima, Ohio case, there was a individual. Now I'm trying to think which one, because there was actually two of them that came out of Lima. There was one where an individual was driving down the road, and where one basically came out in front of him. Definitely seen the full body, of the animal. Described it with the tail. His whole description was, and he even actually said this, that it was a Van Helsing style werewolf from the movie Van Helsing. So that kind of gives, some credence to the actual, Dogman, description. So, I thought that one was kind of interesting. And that's when I think he was with his wife on that particular case. Now, the second one in Lima was very similar to it. That was more of a daytime sighting. There was a second one, that was a nighttime sighting where the guy was coming down the road and he spotted it kind of like off of the side of the road, and he, kind of drove by, and he completely looked at this thing and said it was, a large dog that was standing up on its hind legs, like it was getting ready to cross the road. And he noticed that, you know, prior to spotting, that particular creature, a deer ran across the road. So, and maybe, this thing stopped because he was coming down from being spotted, or maybe it knows what, cars can do, but it didn't cross the road until after he passed to go after the deer. Now, those are the only two sightings in Lima that I know of, and I hope it was one that you know of, or if there's something different, I'd definitely love to know about that.
No, that's the one I was talking about, the last one you mentioned.
Oh, okay.
I know you've done a lot of research also into the activity that's gone down in the Land Between the Lakes area. The story Jan Thompson shared about the boy who was riding his dirt bike and got attacked. Tell us what you know about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, there's a popular area there where a lot of people go dirtback riding and stuff, and there have been quite a few sightings in that area. One was a guy was coming down with his dirt bike, stopped to adjust one of his boots, and he was along, the road there, and the tree line kind of came down a little bit, and he said that this thing grabbed his leg, and it was like a dog, a large dog with human hands, grabbed his leg, and he just, sped out. He was able to get away from it. And he said, he never goes back in that area again. I mean, it absolutely terrified him. He heard the stories, thought they were all a bunch of bull until, he actually looked at it face to face and where it grabbed him. And he said this thing grabbed him hard enough. If it wanted to, it could have pulled him off, and it didn't. And that's, I think is, I think these things more want to scare you to get you out of the area, because they were probably more terrified of the bike than they were of the human. And I think that, they put enough pressure on you to scare you. Because I think if they want to hurt you, they're going to do it. They're definitely going to do it. But yeah, that was an interesting, it's one of many that actually by people who dirt bikes, where they would, coming down the road, at a high rate of speed, and one would run out in front of them, or they would see it, along the, the tree line or something. There's many stories coming out there about that. There've been over 100 sightings, I think, within the last probably 30 years that came out of there. And that's kind of unique.
It is strange about that area of the LBL. Most areas, as you know, including the Bray Road area, they're hot for a period of time the way the Bray Road area was in the late 80s and into the early 90s. And then that activity kind of peters off and subsides. But with the LBL, it's been hot for so long.
Oh, it has. I mean, and even, Wisconsin, there's still stuff, going on up there in the wood line, the main woods up in that area. It's just what it is. The locals keep it to themselves. They don't want a whole lot of people coming in there and stirring up the area. And it's the same thing with Germantown. They don't let the stories get out because they don't want all these people running up there. They don't need that. They take care of the situation on their own up there. And, LBL is basically the same thing. The Fish and Game in that area, they know exactly what is going on. Local law enforcement in that area, they know what is going on. That's why they're putting out now that, the kills that are taking, the small dogs and deers and stuff like that, they're saying it's a big cat. And they're actually coming out and saying that that's the excuse that they're saying, because, they know that there's something there and it's doing damage and it can't be hidden. So they have to come up with something to make people stay aware of their surroundings and things by saying it's a large cat. And I think that's really odd that they're saying that, because a large cat is about the only other thing that could do what's going on up there.
Sounds kind of like a generic explanation to me if
It
you're
is.
going to try and use that.
It is, because you know what? People are going to believe that over a werewolf.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
You give them disinformation that they'll believe.
That's a good point. That's a good point there. I know you've got a lot of education on and opinions on the whole Jan Thompson story about the two policemen that were at the murder scene in the LBL. I've got my doubts about that story because of, if nothing more than the fact that supposedly you've got two police officers who were sworn to secrecy who went and told the very first person that they came across.
From my understanding, they were sworn not to share after they told the story. Okay, that's what I heard. Now, the story has changed a little bit, but it's one of the most popular stories out there about LBL, where these police officers were in the park doing a patrol, and they came across a campsite that was in disarray, and there was a trailer, and the light was on in the trailer. The door was open. There was a bloody handprint. That's why they stopped and investigated. Apparently, they found remains of human. They found dog tracks, large dog tracks. When they looked inside the cabin or the trailer, they found clothing of a small child. The child was nowhere in sight. There was, in one story that I heard, that there was white flags around the body parts, meaning that there was somebody there prior to them, but there was no one around. And then a couple vehicles come up to the area, people wearing civilian clothes from a certain authority, division, and they had a search and rescue party there that was with them, and kind of made them go up on the road, to stop anybody from coming down. And they were able to hear what was going on down on the site, and apparently they said they heard the search and rescue team that they had that went out looking for the child, found the child impaled in a tree about 40 yards away. So something took her up into the tree and impaled her. Either she was impaled or she was up in the tree, and she was not in the best shape. She was dead, but she wasn't in the best shape condition when they found her. But they couldn't find the full body parts of the parents, only partial body parts. And that's the story that I heard. And, when they went in, to the convenience store, they went and grabbed something to drink, walked out, sat on the curb, was very quiet. She was trying to talk to them. They wouldn't talk to her. They kept saying, "I just can't believe what I've seen." Just nonsense. They were talking. And then after a while, they basically told her that story. Now, the neat thing about this is that other people heard of this story, not just from her. She was the original one that put it out, but other people have heard that story. So, is it true? Did it happen? It's hard to say. Did something happen? Most likely. Did it happen the way that it happened? Probably not. But something did happen. There's a researcher that I just talked to down in Texas that ran into the same thing. Same exact thing. Came across a campsite, that was totally ripped apart. Blood. There was stuff that looked like body organs and stuff that was there around the campsite. He filmed it filmed large canine tracks, and he's being shut up by the authorities. He even posted it on Facebook, and they removed it. And it's a very interesting case, and he will not talk about it anymore because he's been threatened. They confiscated, the film, the photographs, everything. But he said, and this took place in Texas, and it's one of these things. It's like the LBL case. This is going to come to life real strong, just like that. And I believe this individual. He's been doing this stuff for years. He's a Bigfoot investigator, and he has no reason to come up and make up something like this.
Yeah, it is horrible the way this whole situation turned out for Bob. He is a really nice guy. I've spoken
so you know
with
what
him
I'm
before.
talking about.
Oh yeah, I sure do. What would you say, and I know this is a hard question to answer, but what would you say is the scariest case you've ever investigated on a Dogman encounter?
The most scary I would honestly have to say would be the Akron case. Because like I said, this one is a sighting that took place of multiple people. It's in an area where a lot of heavy human traffic is, where this thing is actually going into residential areas to go into the garbage for food. Luckily, no one has been hurt, but what makes it terrifying is knowing that this particular creature has no fear. It has no fear to go into a public area to look for food, has no fear to go into a residential area looking for food. That's what's scary. And that the fact that the authorities in that area know about it, and they're just stuck. They don't know what to do. They're just praying to God nothing happens. And that's what makes it terrified. The Germantown case, is very terrifying. I can't just say just one. There's many of them. The LBL, is another one. It's just you just can't put your finger on one, unless you actually were a participant in it, and things. That's the only thing I can say. I just can't say there's just one. If I had to pick one of all the Dogman stories I've ever heard, I would have to say the main case, would probably be the top of my list, because I think there's a lot of credibility in that. It's just, the Sci-Fi Channel just kind of doctored it up a little bit, and embellished.
That is kind of a pick'em question. There's so many scary cases out there.
Yeah, there's just so many of them, and it's just you just can't pick. Pick one. It's hard. It's hard to do that.
I'm not sure how much thought you've put into this, Joedy, but why do you think the whole Dogman phenomenon is gaining so much momentum and popularity?
He's going to be the next big cryptid. I mean, it's just, the thing of it is about the Dogman is that this is a creature that lives in the fear of your nightmares. Okay? It's not like Bigfoot. It's not like the Mothman. It's not like the Loveland Frogman. These are just animals that, people have seen and got terrified, but I guess they believed they would never be hurt by it. This is something that that will kill you. Will literally kill you. And you know it because not so much you see it in movies. That has a lot to do with it, I think, in the back of your head. But the fact of it is, it's a canine, and people are scared of dogs anyhow because they know the damage a dog could do. What would you think of damage of something that's able to have hands like a raccoon or hands like a human that can grasp you and do damage to you. That's what's terrifying. Not be able to get away from it. That's the scary part.
Considering how they look, considering their weaponry, all that going together, that doesn't paint a pretty picture, to say the least.
You know what? I think people would rather take a gunshot over a dog bite. Because, the infection's a lot worse than a dog bite, I think in a gunshot, because, a dog bite, especially when you're a child, that's something that stays with you all your life. And most people will tell you that. That's something that stays with you all your life, that dog. I have a German Shepherd. My dog, my wife loves them and adores them, but she's afraid of dogs because she was bit by one when she was younger. She's always been that way. Now, with Max, he's part of the family, so she's not afraid of him. But she knows what he can do, and things. And that's the thing with people that, they know what these things can do. It's not so much the hands, it's the mouth that can just literally rip you. One bite, it's also, you think of it as like a lion or a bear, that they can just wish you around like a rag doll, because of their strength and size, and I think that has a lot to do with it. And like I said, it's definitely something that's in the back of your mind, it's in your nightmares, and things. It's just something that truly scares, it truly scares you, It's more of a predator than a Bigfoot or, like I said, Mothman or something like that.
Those are really good points with Bigfoot or the Mothman. They're scary, but when you see them, you don't get that predatory response in your psyche the way you do when you see something that looks like a werewolf or something that can look like a werewolf the way that Dogman can. So that is a good point. And also, too, if you're attacked and killed by a lion, it's going to be, in most cases, a much cleaner kill than it's going to be if you get attacked by a huge dog or i.e. a Dogman.
Correct, because most people know predators don't attack unless they're hungry or you invaded their privacy. Most of the time when you're in the woods and they're bears, if they hear you, they're going to run, and they'll do that. This thing, he's not going to run from you. He knows he's the dominant in the field. And that's the thing. They know this thing, he'll kill you to kill you, not for food. And a lot of these kills that are taking place, they know that, they can see it, that these things are killing to kill, not necessarily just for food. Because the food abundance out there, there's plenty of roadkill, for these things to eat. There's plenty of small prey for these things to eat. You're familiar with the Beast of Seven Shoots. That's a classic werewolf. I mean, that photograph. That is what that is. You can just look at it and tell, what that thing is. And you can see it's holding a small dog in its arms. It's either its child or its prey that it picked up. Because a lot of people camp in that particular park who has reported, their dogs missing, from there. So, that's another interesting thing, that this thing is, it's a predator. And if anybody ever wants to see what I'm talking about, look up the Beast of Seven Shoots. That is the most classic werewolf figure that's out there. And that was a picture that was taken accidentally and got a really good shot of it. Because the guy was taking a picture of the waterfall. He didn't realize this thing was down there looking up at him, when he was on the bridge. So that's another interesting thing.
Isn't it a spooky thought that you could be in a wooded area, like he was, be that close to something like that and not even know that it's there? That's not good.
No, it's not. And the thing of it is, how many times have you been out in the woods and a deer ran out in front of you, or a rabbit or something? And the thing of it is, these animals blend in so well with the environment. And a lot of times, I think to myself, how many times have I walked past probably a Bigfoot or a Dogman and never knew it because he blended in so much to the environment? And how many times other researchers or people have done it? I've seen Bigfoot. I was in the Army, and I had 3 other guys with me, and we were estimating 12 to 15 feet away from it. And if he didn't move, we would never have seen him. Literally. He blended in with the environment so much. If he would not have moved, we would never have seen him, and we were that close to him. And I had 3 other guys with me. And that's what I'm talking about, and that's what you're talking about. These things blend into the environment. They can camouflage themselves, and you can walk right past it and not even know it. And I'm sure people have done that. Other researchers have done that. I talked to a really funny Bigfoot case, to get off the subject for a minute. This turkey hunter in Adams County was coming out, going into a wood line, and he sees this Bigfoot literally standing there. There was a branch from the tree that came down that covered its head and the top part of its chest. And it's standing behind that branch, looking at him. And, he's sitting there thinking that he's scared for what he sees, but on the other hand, he's kind of laughing in the back of his head because this Bigfoot thinks his branch is covering his whole body, and it's not. And he's able to see it. And that goes back to what we're saying. They're probably there, and we just don't know it because people don't look at their surroundings when they're in the field. The thing of it is, they know we're there. People are loud when they go to the field. We're always stepping on something, breaking on something. We're always talking, too loud. We're making too much noise. You can talk to any, especially during someone that served in Vietnam, and they'll tell you the NVA, they mostly knew when the Americans were coming because they were loud. Because that's how they are. They're loud when they move, and that's how we are when we're in the field. And so they hear us, and they're long gone before we get close to them. And other animals, squirrels, rabbits, deer, coyotes and stuff. They hear us coming. They're going to move out. They're not going to sit around and investigate. Because they'll smell us before they hear us.
It makes me wonder too how many Bigfoots, how many Dogmen, you name it. I've walked past in the woods and had no clue.
And you had no idea. And 9 times out of 10, you probably have, and so has other researchers, and you just didn't know it.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah, I don't doubt that whatsoever.
No.
Well, it's about time to wrap this show up here, Joedy. Please tell us about the Dogman books you've written.
I did 3 books. The first one I did was called Werewolf, Myths, and Legends, and it kind of talks about, werewolf sightings, through France and Eastern Europe. It talks a lot about Native American folklore. I got a couple of different cases in there from Ohio that I thought was kind of interesting in there. I got a chapter of a bunch of sightings from the United States, just different areas in there, and got one chapter in there about sightings from around the world, current sightings and stuff, different parts of different countries and stuff. Because this is a worldwide thing. This is not just something that is strictly the United States. This is happening all over the world. Every culture has something dealing with Dogman, even going back all the way to ancient Greek times, going all the way down to Egyptian times. There's something that's been talked about it. And that was the first one. The second book I did, it's called The History of the Dogman, and it talks about Dogman that's in like a lot of Renaissance art, a lot of Christianity art, a lot of like in the Catholic religion and stuff. They talk about dogmen, dog-headed men, and things. Just 15th century, 16th century, 17th century stuff about dogmen. The stuff that's more of the past, which is I kind of find really interesting because there's a lot more detail about that stuff. Going through, talking with Vikings. Not talking to the Vikings, but when you talk about Vikings, when you talk about Egyptian time, when you talk, like I said, Greek mythology, things like that, especially Eastern Europe and France, it was very common for them to have artwork. Even the Greeks had a god that they called King Lycan, who was a dog-headed man, which I found very interesting. And that was my second book. So my third book I'm working on is called Dogman, Werewolf Encounters in Northeastern United States, or Northeastern America, rather. And it deals with a lot of up-to-date current sightings, through all the Northeastern states. And, I just got done with the book, and so I decided, there's so many sightings that's taken place in the southern states, so many sightings taken out west. So I dedicated chapters to, sightings that took place like in Louisiana, Alabama, Texas, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, and, out west and things, because, I just don't want to leave that stuff out. I just don't want the readers to sit there and think just the Northeast is where everything's taking place. In a sense, it is. There's more sightings taking place in the Northeast than any place in the United States. And that's why I sat there and, dominated the book mostly on that area. And, I talk about, why dogmen can't exist. And I have a chapter in there that you wrote for a magazine article for my magazine about the different types of dogmen, which is, I think, is the best theory that's out there. And I think everybody should look at that. And I dedicated a chapter just to that. And I think that will give a really good understanding to people who had sightings, that they can understand their sighting that they had because of that particular story that you wrote about, the type 3s and the canines. And I talk a little bit about the anatomy of a dogman, why it can be a flesh and blood creature and not something that is a transformation. Transformation would basically kill a human. So that's just science fiction. That's not reality. This is a live flesh and blood entity. And I wanted to kind of prove that in that chapter, So it's going to be a good book. I'm really, really proud, what I did and things. And I'm really thankful for people like you and other researchers out there who allowed me to use some of their stories that I didn't have, because I wanted to, because I may have like one story for one state and was able to get other stories for that state, to show some type of a pattern. And it really, some of the artwork in there, I have a friend, actually I got a couple friends that's on, a website that does a lot of artwork and stuff, that did a lot of the canine artwork for the book, called Deviant Art, which is some of those people are just fantastic on there, and they allowed me to use some of their artwork for the stories and stuff, and they did some of the artwork for the stories and things. It's just, I think it's going to be a really good book. It has a lot of photographs in it, to go with a lot of these stories and things. And I think it's going to be a good book. I really think it's going to be a good book.
If you're like me and can't get enough of the Dogman topic, all three of these books that Joedy just mentioned are definitely must-reads. You've got to get your hands on them.
Yeah, they can go to Amazon.com, and go into the book section, put my name in there, and you'll be able to see all the books that I did. I did quite a few books on Bigfoot. Did one on the Mothman. Did one called Winged Entity Casebook, which talks about different type of winged entities. There's no pictures in there. It's just a bunch of short investigations from the United States and from around the world of winged entity type cases. Did two books called Humanoid Encounters for Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. And what those basically are is sightings of any type of a creature that was in human form, either a ghost, a Bigfoot, a Dogman, an alien. It's a very interesting book, and like I said, it's a case book, so there again, there's no pictures. There's just a lot of short, little stories in the book, and it tells the location, the time, and the story. And it's like I said, it's broken down for one for Ohio and West Virginia, and the other one is for Pennsylvania. I tried to do one for like every state, but there just wasn't enough, to do that, and it's just too much time. So I just left it down to those. And I did this project for the Sci-Fi Channel on zombies for a show they asked me to do, and the show never got off the ground. So I took all the stuff, and I made like two books out of it. One's kind of serious, and the other one's kind of funny. One's called, the funnier one is Zombies, What You Need to Know or You're Going to Die. And it's kind of like, kind of crazy stuff like, how t-shirts aren't bite-proof, and, if zombie invasion takes place, you got to make sure you grab the mother-in-law, or your wife will never let you live it down. She'll feed you to the zombies. I mean, just a lot of crazy stuff, of just how ignorant things are with people when something like that happens, and I kind of talk about, how Walmart is probably one of the best zombie shelters around because everything you need is there. Food, stuff for your car, weapons, ammunition, everything. That's probably the best zombie shelter. That's where you would want to go, one of these big box stores, and things. So it's really interesting, And like I said, I had all this information that I did for the Sci-Fi Channel, and I said, you know what, I'm going to make books out of these. I think it would be funny, and so I did, and things. So they did pretty good. So I was kind of happy with that.
Well, they all sound like really good reads to me, so...
Yeah, and, I also did a magazine project called Cryptid Seekers Magazine, which deals with different cryptids, and stuff. I have 3 issues out now. I'm working on the 4th issue. They can find that on magcloud.com. M-A-G, and then the word cloud, like a cloud in the sky, .com, and just look just type in the name Cryptid Seekers Magazine, and you'll be able to find it. A lot of people who do paranormal magazines and stuff, they have them on there, and you get it directly through there. And what's neat about that site, you can go through page through page through page on the book, look at the magazine before you buy it, which is kind of interesting. So they can go there to look at it, and things. So yeah, I'm kind of happy about that. They did, those magazines did pretty good. Got a lot of really good feedback on them.
Well, you should be. Joedy, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing all that great info with us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Love to be here. Thank you.
Well, thanks again, and have a great night, okay?
All right, buddy. You have a good one.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye. If you've had a Dogman encounter and you'd like to speak with me about it, whether in private or on the show, you can reach me at contact@dogmanencounters.com. I'd love to hear from you.